Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for May 25th, 2001. We're going to begin with our roll call.
Mike Murphy.
Present.
Peter Lewis.
Present.
Kevin Scully.
Present.
Austin Said.
Present.
Marcy Daniel.
Present.
And Chip, Postilion.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. To begin the meeting, I'll ask everybody to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of just to go through some of the procedural things, emergency exits are at the back of the room, and you can also leave in case of any emergencies, you can leave through the front door where you came in through also. We have a rather long agenda tonight, and before I get into that, I just want to welcome new members of the board. Marcia Daniels started with us just last month, and she's back again today, so that's very encouraging. Thank you, Marcia.
You're very welcome.
And we also have with us tonight a new alternate board member, Chip Postiglione, and his job is to fill in whenever we have an absence on the board. So thank you, Chip, for being here tonight. And as usual, the rest of the guys who've been here for a couple of years, so thanks for hanging in there and helping us through these applications. As I mentioned, we have a relatively long agenda, so I just want to go through that briefly with everybody. We have, starting with public. Okay, Pietro Fini. And I believe Claire Runco was taken off the agenda?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's one less matter to deal with tonight. We're moving along already. Returning projects is DG Realty. It's a subdivision that's being proposed before the planning board. That's on Scunnamunk Road. And under new projects tonight, we have Rodit Markovici on 308 Lakes Road. And we'll hear about that later. And we also have Kingsville Synagogue, third floor apartment request. And that will cover it for new items, and at the end, we'll adjourn the meeting. So without any further ado, I'd like to call Anthony Piazza to the floor to begin the public meeting, and I'll ask the board for a motion to open the public meeting.
I'll make a motion to open the public meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I'm all confused. It's been a long day. You got that, but he said I am.
Okay.
Can I go home now?
Thank you, Mr. Piazza.
Thank you.
If you would, please briefly explain your application before the board tonight.
Yeah, we are looking to add on a small addition to the side of our home. It's for a small dining room, 12 by 24, one level, continuing roof line of the existing home, so as not to change really the look of the home at all. Basically, that's the gist of it.
Which variances are you?
The variance that we were dealing with is the side yard and the overall number.
So I can jump in there. What I think is there's three existing conditions that are pre-existing non-conforming. First is the lot area at 21,958, whereas 43,560 is required. Lot width, 100 is provided, 150 is required. The front yard is 26.6 and 50 is required. So those are all existing conditions, pre-existing, non-conforming as to bulk, but the addition would require variances from those sections, but also brings into play the side yard and the lot coverage. If I was reading it right, you would need a variance for, on the side where you're doing the addition, that brings it to 22 feet.
Right, it would be
And 30
additional 8 from what I have.
Yeah, and 30 feet are required. And on the other side that's not affected, you're already at, I think, 12 feet 7 inches, or 12.7 inches. Am I right on that? So technically, a side yard variance over there.
I think it was 7, sorry, I think it's 17. I think it's a little bit more than that.
To me, I'm like on that other side, it's a pre-existing non-conforming 12 feet, 8.5 inches.
Is that it? I'm sorry. I thought it
I
was,
think that's what I see on that front corner.
Yeah, what did I think it was 17 there? No, you're right, correct.
You probably needed
No,
17.
correct, 12 8.
And then,
17 in the back, I'm sorry.
and then total side yard, I believe it requires 65 feet, and he provides with the new addition 34.7. And the lot coverage, I think, is presently 33.1, and he's requesting to go up to 35, whereas 15 is the max.
Most of these issues existed from when the home was built, because as we discussed the last time, it's a 1-acre zone, and it's a half-acre property. And that's pretty much for the whole of High Ridge Road. So everybody on High Ridge Road pretty much is already at the point, just from when the house was built in the 50s, I guess. I'm not quite sure the year.
Zoning might have been different at that.
Sure, but, right. So that's why the numbers look so bad now. I mean, I was already in the hole to begin with, just when the house was built, right? So that's, right, exactly. That's my point.
I wasn't here.
I'm sorry.
What are the side variants?
So, pardon me, so the side variances that are required or requested, since he's putting the addition on that right side, I'm calling it the right side if you're looking from High Ridge Road, on that side, that's going to be brought to within 22 feet of the side yard. 30 feet are required. So there's a new side yard variance. You know, assuming the property was totally in conformance, which it wasn't, that would be what you would ordinarily be looking at. Okay, we want to do want to do an addition on the side. It comes within 22 feet, 30 feet are required. You'd need a variance for that.
What's that side measurement without the addition?
I'm adding 8 feet to it. So it's already, I guess, 22, 8. So I'm at 30 now.
Currently,
But I'm only adding 8 to it because there's a small mudroom to the side that we're like taking out and adding this room so that we're actually eating up 5 feet that's already there.
without the addition, currently meets side yard setback.
Yes,
On that side.
on that side.
Right.
On the far side, it does not.
But it's per side, it's not a total.
Well, there is a total number.
There's a total also.
Yeah.
And then total.
Yeah.
Right, you have a minimum of one side yard.
On the mic, Mike.
You have a minimum requirement on one side yard of at least 30 feet, and a combined side yard requirement of 65. So that's really 30 and 35 is what you need. The existing condition is they have 30 on one side and 30 on one side and 42 combined, and what's being proposed is 22 and 34.7. So he is, shaving off of the total side yards provided, but it's all happening on that one side yard.
Right, correct. And Mr. Lewis, I know you weren't here last time. This is the smallest addition we could probably, feasibly do. We knew we were going to need a variance. We didn't try to get anything larger than we need. This is pretty much would make it happen, this 12-foot width.
out celebrating his birthday last month.
Really? Get the hell out of here. You're not
Not
60.
yet. I'm 60 in November, but all my children were like, we have to go away for a trip, and this was the only week that worked, so.
Well,
So I'm 59 and a half. not
no, well,
60.
still, I'm impressed.
That's why he's a little slow today. Okay. While Peter goes through the application, does anybody have any additional questions for Mr. Piazza?
No.
All good? Marcia?
No question.
Are
good.
Are the allowed building hours? Got plenty of real.
These are probably the two documents that are the most descriptive, the letter and then this site plan, this small 8.5 by
Yeah.
11. It's probably, you could probably get the whole scoop from those two things.
Yeah.
So, no further questions from the board. Is there anybody in the public that has any questions or comments on the Piazza application for a side yard variance? Last call on the board, everybody good? All right, so this was a fairly straightforward request, and it was well documented. Thank you for having, survey maps prepared that are up to date and depict your property clearly. We don't always get that, and by you providing that up front, it has made this process go a little bit smoother and quicker for you and for us. So thank you on that account.
One more question, just.
Sure.
I didn't get a chance, usually I run and go to the properties and take a
Sure.
look at them. I didn't get a chance to do it, I apologize for that. But what is on this, what's on this other side of your property on where the addition is being built?
Where it's going to be built? Nothing at all. Goes right up to the property line. There was a tree that was tilting over from the storm. We had it removed.
The property next to you, is there a house next to you?
Oh,
on
there's a
that?
house, yeah, past the property line. Yeah, if you,
Got it, okay.
I don't know if you have the high
mean,
ridge.
And obviously everybody got notice, correct? So-
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
He's back.
Okay, so that's fine. I'm always interested if neighbors have concerns
no.
with things.
Yeah, of
and
course.
such, so.
This addition is going to allow you to build a new dining room?
Yes, we're looking to add a dining room. As I explained the last time, we're on our third grandchild. Everybody still comes to our house. I have 6 kids altogether, 3 grandchildren. We're always standing up, eating a lot, so when we get together, so the dining room would kind of really make it a place we can stay pretty much the rest of our time here. So we're not looking to go anywhere. We've been here 20 years, and we'd like to stay here. Right.
So with all of that taken care of, do we want to close the public hearing? I have a
I'll
motion.
make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So carried. Okay.
Yeah, what you should do is, what you should do is consider the 5 factors, talk about them, and, if you can reach a consensus tonight, you could, one option is to vote on it and then authorize me to prepare a resolution to memorialize that. Another option, you have 62 days now from the date of the public hearing was closed to make the decision. So you could decide it tonight, but you don't have to.
And I'm going to put you on the spot because I don't have my cheat sheet for the 5 factors in front of me tonight.
I do.
Ah.
So the 5 factors, as the board's well aware, it's a balancing test that the board is to engage in, weighing the benefit to the applicant of the variances granted against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by the grant, and that is to be looked at in view of the 5 factors. The first one is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by a grant of the variance sought.
Going to be a bigger house than the rest of the houses that are there. I don't know. I don't know that I
Well, if you go over one more, this is a much bigger house.
I'd have to
That
kind
one
of,
right there.
I don't know. I don't know that it looks like it would be within the character of the neighborhood. I can't tell because I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with the
I mean,
entire street.
We're right below us is Mansion Ridge, so you know what that looks like. And
Certainly.
we're not even in that
Right.
ballpark, so.
You kind of see it just on this map here. These are the rooftops of the homes in High Ridge, and then right below it is the next subdivision,
Certainly, it's not.
Alex Smith
I mean,
subdivision, and that's...
My kids used to play over there years ago.
Those are absolute McMansions over there, and he's adjacent to that, so...
Okay, the next factor is whether the benefits sought by the applicant could be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
You could you could do it, extension into the back.
I think you said that if the property is done,
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be,
the last time we met, I think we established that if the lot's non-conforming, if the width is non-conforming, if there's anything non-conforming, you can't further alter or add on to the property without a variance. Yeah, so he
Oh,
can't, so
I
he
see what you're
cannot
saying.
do, he can't.
So if he wanted to add an addition to the back of the house within the allowable building envelope, he'd still be here for a variance.
He'd still,
Correct.
not feasible in any way, shape, or form, no matter where you stick it.
Okay, the third factor is whether the variance is substantial.
I think it leaves adequate side yard between his house and his neighbor's house to the left.
I think if it was substantial, the neighbor would be here complaining.
Yes.
Yeah, it's,
The next factor is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. Number 5 is whether the difficulty was self-created, and as the board's aware, that's informative but not determinative.
Really, it's self-created and so we haven't gone through the 5 factors, and I think we've kind of all reached a consensus on how we feel about those things. The next item would be to consider a resolution for approval of the variances requested. And the one variance that's being requested tonight is the reduction in side yard based on this new extension, and also an increase in impervious area. The other variances that we would be granting would be, minimum lot area, because it's pre-existing, minimum lot width, also pre-existing, minimum front yard, pre-existing, And that is the only thing that is changing. The building height remains the same, so it's really just the further encroachment into the side yard on the left of the house and slight increase in the impervious area of the property. It's going up by 2%, goes from 33% up to 35% in an area that's allowed 15%. So it's already well out of conformance with that requirement. But these new requirements, this is for the RR1 acre zoning, which have changed recently, and that's what puts this lot in this predicament. So, would anybody like to motion to approve a variance for this property on the reduction in side yard availability due to the addition, the 8-foot addition? Any increase in the impervious area, which is 2% more than currently exists, and brings it up to 20% greater than the code allows. And then also take into consideration the 1, 2, 3 pre-existing conditions for minimum lot area, minimum lot width, and minimum front yard setbacks.
Voting on those?
Memorializing.
No, I think the
Okay.
answer is, yeah, in order to permit this extension, you'd have to grant a variance for those pre-existing nonconformities. So you would be granting, if the motion is to grant the variances, it's to grant all of those variances, the lot area, width, and front yard, and actually the existing side yard on the other side, all as pre-existing conditions that the applicant isn't changing, but they need a variance because of this addition on the one side, and so in addition to that, they'd need the side yard and total side yard and lot coverage variances.
Have a combination here of 3.
Variances are these, right? These are the variances. They're not different than what's in the letter, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the variance for variances 1 through 5, including an encroachment of 21,602 square feet on lot area, an encroachment of 50 feet on lot width, an encroachment of 23.4 feet on front yard, an encroachment of 17.3 feet for one and 30.3 feet for total, and an encroachment of 20% on lot coverage. Total side yards and an encroachment of 20% on lot coverage.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, from here, you go back to the building department.
Okay.
Right, we have to get the resolution drafted up. So
You let me-
the next matter is,
If you could, just like I said, I'm trying to clean up our procedure, so if you could entertain another motion to authorize me to prepare a resolution
Correct.
memorializing the vote that you just took, and then authorizing the chairman to sign that upon his review and his satisfaction that it's in conformance with what the board did tonight. So that's the motion, if you want me to, yeah. If somebody wants to make that motion, please.
I can't remember all that. I'm going to make a motion that David prepare a resolution for the chairman's approval.
There you go. That's a lot quicker to say.
I'll second the motion.
You're in charge now.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that sets you up to go back to the building department. Once you have the signed variance in hand, then you can proceed with your application in the building department. Good luck.
Thank you.
About a week.
Huh? Okay, we'll talk. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next public hearing we have tonight is for Pietro Fini. Good evening, Mr. Monroe. Would anybody on the board like to make a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open a public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Mr. Monroe, if you could just briefly describe for the board your application and the resolution of the issues therein, and we'll go on from there.
All right, so this is an application to review a determination, well, a notice issued by the building inspector alleging that Mr. Feeney was in violation of a 1983 site plan which showed one building on his land as being a two-family where it was designated on the plan as to be a one-family. And so we filed the application to review that determination on the basis that Mr. Feeney represented to me that since he bought the property in '73, it was a two-family at that time, and it's been a two-family forever. So based on that information, I did a little digging to find out why this 1983 site plan said something different than what the state of facts in the field were. And based on the documents we've shown you, back in 1982 or 81, there was a five-family unit on the property that burned down. And when Mr. Feeney went to the building inspector to rebuild that structure, he was told that the building inspector needed a determination from the Zoning Board of Appeals that the building was a legal non-conforming building. So he went to the ZBA in '82. His application was turned down. He went back in '83. The board granted him the right to have a rehearing. He submitted additional evidence, and the board at that time agreed to change their decision and allow him to rebuild the five-family. Based on that, and based on what I see on the site plan, it looks to me like as the 1983 site plan was really a septic design for the five-family unit. So it's my belief that he gets the ZBA variance and goes back to the building inspector. The building inspector says, you got to get the septic approved. Go get your septic approved from the planning board, and you can build your house. He hired Stephen Deutsch, the engineer. He prepared this site plan, went in, got the septic design approved, and they built the five-family. So from '83 to 2019, everything went on as usual. The board wanted, no, not the board, but so in the course of trying to gather information as to how I could recreate history here, I foiled the assessor's records, I foiled the building department records, I filed the ZBA records, I filed the planning board records, and it turns out the results, I got assessor's records, but there were zero records in the building file, prior to 1980, there were zero records at all. There were no planning board minutes, there were no ZBA minutes, other than the decisions. So basically, believing my client, he said it was a two-family. I went out and looked at the place. It's got two entrances, one on each side. It clearly was built as a two-family. I saw no reason why he would be putting one over on me. 2 meetings ago, it was suggested that I might reach out to the Gertzkises who had sold the property. I talked to Robert Gertzkis. His grandmother lived there and was the one who sold it to Mr. Feeney. He said, listen, I grew up there. I spent all my time when I was a kid. It was always a two-family house. This is going back prior to '65. And then based on that affidavit I produced and Mr. Feeney's affidavit, I think it's kind of uncontroverted that it's been a two-family since prior to '65.
Even within the records you presented to us, the assessor's record indicated that there were three families in that house.
Right.
So we had it, as 1 and 3, and you're claiming it to be 2, so that seems to be a good compromise.
If he's being taxed as a three-family, then
Yes.
he should take that up with the assessor. I didn't reach out to the assessor because if it said it was a one-family, then I'd have a real issue here, but two-family, three-family, clearly he's not a one-family. So if he's getting overtaxed on it, that's an issue I can talk to him about. But there's zero evidence, really, that it was ever a one-family, at least going back prior to 65. So it's my contention that this map that Mr. Deutsch prepared, that designation as a single-family dwelling it really wasn't relevant to the review at the time, so there was no reason for anyone to really take issue with it. It had zero bearing on what the septic design was going to be for the five-family. I think it was misnoted, it was an error, and so what we're asking the board to do is, based on basically uncontroverted evidence, to declare that that map note was placed on there in error, and to deem it change the word from single to two, and deem that to be the map note going forward. And I only make my argument is based strictly on the fact that I looked. I mean, if I could have come up with something that showed, I would, I have an obligation to tell you. There's nothing. So I think it's, I'm asking for this based on what I think is an uncontroverted fact.
I don't think that we could actually, as the ZBA, verbally change what's on a drawing. I think we have to simply just acknowledge that there's a historical lineage of the board recognizing certain things based on affidavit, and that's what we're potentially being asked to do here tonight, is to look at a piece of evidence that's being presented and to make a decision based on that. I mean, certainly I can't revise a map that was drawn by somebody else. I could only alter it based on what I add to it, and only even at that point, my work is the addition, not what was done before. So,
Right. And I don't think we're trying to alter that map. What we're trying to do is just correct the town's internal record of how many families are in that structure. And, from the testimony we've heard from the prior owner's grandson, who's been there all his life, is that it was always a two-family house. Mr. Feeney, who bought it in 1972 or 73?
73.
73, he's been there for almost 50 years now. Yeah.
The variance we're considering is what? Is an interpretation?
The interpretation of whether this is a single-family dwelling or a family dwelling. The majority of the evidence for us points to this being the only thing that directs us differently is a map note from a site plan prepared for a septic system design for one of the other buildings on the property. So the engineer probably just didn't pay a lot of attention to it because he wasn't dealing with that structure.
Who?
Grandson?
His mother is an adjoiner. She's the one who yelled at me on the phone when I called her. He lives on the border of Blooming Grove and Monroe. So he was in the area, but yeah, he's still in the area.
I don't know if you saw the affidavit.
I just read it.
Oh, okay.
I have it in my...
I tried to keep it short.
So to be clear, what the board's being asked to do here, if you look at the very first line on the narrative, the addendum to the application filed on behalf of the applicant, the first sentence says it pretty concisely. The applicant seeks an interpretation confirming that the structure on the subject property is a legal, non-conforming two-family dwelling unit. That's the relief you're looking for.
Yes. And at that point, we're not in violation.
And you're not looking to make any changes to the building at this time?
No.
Right? It's just...
No. Zero. None. Property's built out. That's not happening.
All right, so are there any further questions from the board?
No.
Is there anybody in the audience, the public, that would like to speak? Nobody? Okay. Thank you, Noreen. All right, so on that note, I'd like to ask if anybody would like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. That closes our public hearing on this matter. And I think at this time, we'd probably like to go into the 5 factors before we talk
It's
about
not
the
a variance.
resolution.
Well, it's not a variance per se, so the 5 factors are not applicable. It's
Okay.
basically, it's one of the unique things that the board has the power to do. It can grant a use variance, it can grant an area variance, and it can interpret the code on an appeal from a building inspector's determination. So that third option is what's being asked of you. So there's no particular, statutory set of factors for you to consider on this one. It's just a matter of, how do you feel about what's been presented, and do you feel that that this should be a pre-existing non-conforming two-family dwelling, because the building inspector has determined, based solely on this map and based solely on the notation on this map that Mr. Monroe has presented to you, that it was historically a single-family dwelling, so that it's not a pre-existing non-conforming two-family. Mr. Monroe is advocating to you that determination is erroneous, and they're asking you to basically overrule it, to say what's on this map doesn't govern. What governs is the facts that I presented before you, that it in fact has been a two-family dwelling all along, and therefore is pre-existing non-conforming.
I just make a motion to interpret, it's a motion to interpret this structure based upon the supplemental information that was provided in the form of an affidavit as a legal non-conforming two-family structure.
Yeah, that's fine. There's no particular magic formula for the motion.
I'd like to do that.
I'll second.
So moved.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Marcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
I was hoping
Glad to
Mr.
see faces.
I was hoping Mr. Feeney was going to show up.
Mr. Feeney's-
Also, would you like to
Feeney's
make a
not-
motion to authorize me to do a resolution and have Mike sign it?
I'd like to make a motion to have David prepare a resolution for the chairman's approval.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Okay, so Runco application is not here tonight. Do we know if they will be returning next month?
Have to on my,
Does it need to be re-advertised?
yes, it has to be re-advertised, and the applicant needs to do the mailings. When I emailed the other 2 applicants, I must have got interrupted, and the 3rd applicant didn't get their mailing list. So they didn't have the opportunity to do their mailing. So they will do it for next month. They're aware of it.
Okay, thank you, Noreen. You're taking the minutes, so you know what you said.
I'll make up what I said.
Okay, so at this juncture, this brings us to returning projects. The next project on the agenda is DG Realty. This is a proposed subdivision on Scunnamunk Road in the town of Monroe. And here tonight, presenting this is Mr. John Higgins.
David Higgins,
Higgins.
Thank you, Mike, that's okay. David Higgins from Lincoln Tully Engineering and Surveying.
Okay, David, so this is your second time back here before the ZBA. You were here once before, and this is an application really that's before the planning board, and you were proceeding with the planning board. The project that you have, or the application that you have, is for a cluster subdivision.
Correct.
Okay. And that cluster was based on a zoning compliant map.
Yes, a yield map,
get the yield.
conventional subdivision was presented to the planning board to demonstrate, I think it was a maximum of 15 dwelling units in a conventional layout.
Now, in that yield plan, the maximum length of the cul-de-sac in the town of Monroe, as you may know, is 500 feet. So it doesn't show on your map. Let me just show your map for a moment here.
It's huge.
That's essentially the subdivision, and it doesn't show the length of the village street leading up to the beginning of your cul-de-sac. And from what I measure off of, tax maps, it appears that it's already about 475 feet long. So my question to you goes back to, how did the planning board of the town of Monroe, accept a code-compliant yield plan that exceeded the length of the maximum cul-de-sac in the town of Monroe?
Well, I can tell you that I was somewhat involved in the application at the time. John Queenan from my office is really the project manager working on the project, had gone to the majority of the meetings with the town planning board. But I do believe that the question of length of cul-de-sac had come up, and he had shown them different alternatives for the road entrance, and I think the last one in the yield plan showed it like a T for the length of the cul-de-sac, if I remember correctly. But I actually didn't bring the yield plan tonight, so I don't know that for certain, but I know that the length of cul-de-sac was an issue that the planning board had reviewed, and John had gone with them, and it was established that the 15 lot dwelling unit plan was conforming.
On your mic?
What's the length of the cul-de-sac?
Well, the cul-de-sac leading to the parcel, which is in the Village Monroe, and it begins at Scunnamunk Street, that's about 475 feet. So by the town of Monroe code, the maximum cul-de-sac length is 500 feet. So that gives you about 25 feet to extend that cul-de-sac, which is not going to give you the type of yield plan that they determined on this. So that's what I'm wondering, is how they had a, code-compliant yield plan utilizing a cul-de-sac that's well greater than 500 feet. I mean, internally, your cul-de-sac might be 400 feet.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how they came to the determination, but I know John had worked that out with them, and it was determined to be compliant.
What is in this plan, what's the distance of the cul-de-sac?
Mike, is that one of the variances, or is that just an observation?
That's an observation, because I'm wondering how they got to a lot count of 15 using a cul-de-sac that's, far longer than 500 feet. So here, on this page of the plans, they do have roadway stationing.
There's probably, I think, a profile provided in the plan set that should have the stationing on it.
Drawing 3. Get you out.
Shows it's about 450 feet to the center of your cul-de-sac, and your station 0 is about 100 feet into the previous property. So your station 1 is about at your property line, and then beyond 1 you have station 450. So that's another 350 feet of cul-de-sac on top of the 475 feet that already exists. And that's, unfortunately, we didn't make that observation the first time you were here, but I'd really like to understand the planning board's rationale as to how they got to a 15-lot compliant zone count.
Yeah, I will review that with John Queenan when he gets back from vacation and make sure that we get you an answer on that.
Based on what you're saying is that there shouldn't be 15 lots allowed on that?
Because their
too-
base,
Mike?
the base zoning compliant plan is dealing with a cul-de-sac that's far greater than 500 feet. So, the basis of the lot count yield is to determine what you're entitled to under code, without variance, So here we have a condition where they have a road length that's, almost double what's allowed by town code. And I'm saying, well, how do you get there? And I would like to see a letter from the planning board explaining that before, we continue to entertain this application. They may have a clear and concise explanation of that, but I don't know what it is. And, until we figure out how that occurred, I don't know how we can really talk about the zoning setback issues that you have here, which, for the record, can you explain the zoning setback issue that you're actually here for?
Sure. So in the course of the review with the planning board, we had identified two area variances that we need from this board to continue with the subdivision with the planning board. As a cluster subdivision plan, the town code requires that we provide a minimum of 50% of the gross area as protected open space as part of the project. And we do have open space proposed. There's two areas on the plan. There's Area A, which I think is behind Lot 6, and Area B, which is behind Lot 1. And in total, those two areas are 1.7 acres. So the gross area of the property right now is 9.5 acres. Half of that would be 4.75, and we're providing 1.7 acres of open space, which represents about 17% of the total. I think it is worth noting that the back 150 feet of the property is owned by the applicant and part of the 9.5 acres, but because it's an easement with Orange and Rockland, I believe it was the planning board that came to the determination that they cannot count that as open space.
Do you know the amount of space that's there?
In the Orange and Rockland area?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I had checked it before. It was, I came up with just about 3.6 acres.
Okay.
I think, and one of the things I did want to say also is this board should have received correspondence from the planning board. I think it was in November, a letter from Ashley Torres, the attorney for the planning board, just advising this board in as much as certainly the variances are at the discretion of this board. They wanted to make sure that you were aware that the majority of the planning board members were in favor of the cluster plan and in favor generally of the variances that were being requested.
I think we got.
Yeah, and that the cluster plan is a code compliant yield, and having a cul-de-sac that's double the length of the maximum allowed, that doesn't seem code compliant to me. So I'd really like to understand from the planning board, maybe through a letter from their attorney addressing that question as to how this came to be. And if they have a good rationale for that, I'm glad to proceed with this. But until that's cleared up, I still have a lot of questions in my mind about it.
Yeah, I will have to check that with John because that's not one of the things that he reviewed with me, in preparation for him leaving for vacation, so. But I can certainly review that with him. I think that the next step that we would have with the board is a public hearing, and I don't know if the board is in a position to, set that, or if you want the answer to that first, or if you would be willing to, set the public hearing. I can tell you where we are with the planning board, because I actually attended that meeting last week. And we have some comments that we got from Sean, the planning board engineer. We're some cleanup items generally. We are finalizing the stormwater pollution prevention plan, and we did coordinate with the town's hydrogeologist to conduct a well drilling and testing program, which has been approved by the hydrogeologist, and they're probably going to be starting the drilling of the wells next week. That's the plan.
Are there going to be 15 individual wells on this site?
Yes, but there's two that's being tested. I'm sorry,
But
not
ultimately,
not
the ultimate
15. I think it's one per lot.
One per lot?
So
Okay,
there's,
not per
I
unit.
think it's 9 lots.
Our procedures for conducting fact-finding with the planning board? Like, we've never had a joint meeting with them. Is that something that people that,
There's no set rules that would govern it other than open meetings law rules. You'd have to, if you're going to have a joint meeting with them, with a quorum present of either board, you've got to just notice it properly, and the public's certainly invited.
so if we wanted to have a joint, if we wanted to have a fact-finding discussion with the planning board, are we not allowed to have that with them outside of a public?
No, not with a quorum. I mean, if you could meet with less than a quorum, you can talk. There's nothing
So
stopping you from
If
talking.
two from our board and two from their board were willing to sit down and meet,
Yeah,
that wouldn't require us to call it a official meeting.
it should not.
That would make sense for us to talk to them about, because we don't usually have joint, cases with the planning board where we're,
Right, and it's happened once before. That applicant came before us with asking for a number of variances that we disagreed with, and we had wondered how the planning board got to that point. So, the unfortunate part is that, you can see by the level of development in this plan set, a lot of time and effort has gone into this already, and to set the clock back on them at this point in time, I feel bad about that. I recognize the resources involved here, but I also don't understand the basis for the yield plan, and I really want an explanation on that from the planning board before we move forward with entertaining whatever variance it is you're seeking here.
And I just know, like I said, there was a number of variations of alternatives that were prepared. I know this is now going back probably 2 years that was being done. I don't know, the one possibility I can think of also is they may have run the road all the way out to, I think it's 208 that's out there. I mean, again, that's steep,
I don't think they could have done
significant
that.
grading.
Because
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know, but I'd have to check with
That's part of
John.
the code compliant yield plan. If you can't get to it because of grade, then that's an issue, right?
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean,
bought a lot that's big and it's got a lot of issues to it, it's not the same 10 acres as if it were a nice, clear, rolling field of 10 acres.
Correct,
This thing's got, a third to half of it is a O&R easement. You've got a very steep rock cut face on the west side of the project where your road frontage is. And then, other than that, you only have that one bit of road frontage on that side road.
Yeah, it's certainly a fair question, and unfortunately, I didn't really get the preparation work into that. I think John probably had that so far in his rearview mirror in terms of where we were with the project. Didn't even go over it with me, and I have only vague recollection of the plans that were kind of passed around at the time, probably 2 years ago.
Mike, does the planning board have jurisdiction to approve a site, a plan with that kind of, that have to come to us?
No, I believe the yield plan, the basis of the yield plan has to be a code compliant plan,
Yeah.
period.
That's just similar to how when there's a non-conformance bin has to write a letter.
You can't do a yield plan that's based on variances.
Yeah, yeah.
You could end up there, once you show you can get 15 code compliant lots, that you come back and you have this subdivision, a cluster subdivision that has 15 lots, but some of them need variances, and that's probably permissible. But the yield plan has to be clean. It's got to be an honest plan.
You have a planning board meeting coming up on this, or are you just
We
done
just had
until
one
you're...
last week, and I think that we're prepping right now to resubmit revised plans, I believe, to get on to the June meeting.
So it sounds to me like, you're not ready to entertain an application because the application may not be complete. It sounds to me like you probably want the applicant to get back to that planning board, communicate to the planning board in advance of the meeting what the board's concerns have been expressed here, and see if we can get an answer to that, and if necessary, and appropriate in between the meetings or at some point in the near future, if it seems like a good idea to schedule either a discussion between the two chairpersons of the two boards,
Telephone
or
conference.
maybe a sit-down meeting with the applicant without a quorum present, or if everybody wants to be present, we notice a meeting and have a joint meeting, although that would be unusual. I can't think of a time that I've seen that done, but
So, on the planning, we had a joint. Never wanted to do that again.
David, a thought. I know that Ashley Torres had sent correspondence on behalf of the planning board to the ZBA. I'm wondering if we can reach out to her to relay the board's concerns, or I don't know if it's something that you can do directly, but
I would sorry to interrupt, but I would welcome you. I have the letter, the original referral letter to this board was dated September 29th. That's the one that I have. That's probably the one you're talking about.
I think there was one in November. There was I saw something in November, but it was weird because it looked like it was a printout off a computer screen, and it just said November blank 20.
I don't know that I saw that one. If I did, it got by me. But either way, the point being, Ashley communicates to this board on behalf of the planning board. I have no problem if you'd like to just reach out to her and express the concerns that you've heard tonight. I could also likewise do that. But might behoove you to get on that right away tomorrow to get the board thinking about thinking about those issues ASAP.
Right, we'll do that. Okay, yeah, I'll reach out to her and let her know. Okay.
Call me, and then I'll be in touch with.
Okay.
All three of us can try to avoid a situation.
Right.
Should I start back at the beginning?
No.
Welcome, everybody. Anyway, my point was, let's all communicate in a way to get this brought to a head so that your client doesn't get whipsawed between two boards inadvertently.
Yep, fair enough. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you, David.
Okay.
Sorry we didn't have better news for you tonight. Do any of the other board members have any questions before he leaves?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, take care. You too.
Okay, so that brings us up to new items on the agenda tonight. The first item is Rodit Markovici. Is that good? Okay, if you could approach the board. Yeah, you have to make a presentation.
First of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Julian Avior, A-V-I-O-R.
And you are representing the client tonight?
Yes, I'm representing my girlfriend, which is the owner of the property in 308 Lakes Road.
Okay.
My name, Julian Avior. Rodit Markovic, yes. She's the one with the ideas, I'm the one with the performance.
Okay. Okay, so you were sent here because you're looking to do an extension on your home, and the building inspector sent you here because you're not in compliance with the zoning. With reference to your lot located in the SR 15 zoning district with central sewers and your proposed left side and rear addition application for a building permit presented to his office in March 31st, 2021, at that time requiring a building permit could not be issued for the following reasons. Compliance with bulk regulations required non-conforming structures. Except herein, no building or structure enlarged or rebuilt in conformity, and that's basically saying that if you're not in complete compliance with the zoning regulations, you have to get a variance. So then he's saying the district of regulations for SR 15 requires a minimum areas and setbacks, front yard of 40 feet. What's existing is 18.9 feet. So that's an encroachment of 21 feet. So that's what brings you to the ZBA. Now, what is the extension that you're constructing or looking to construct?
We are looking to make a two-car garage, which is going to be close to the house. And we are building about 700 square feet or more living space. And all the project is behind the house, on the side of the house. And our project is not making the non-conforming more negative. We are not touching that. So the existing condition is going to exist the same when we finish our project. And our intention is here to have a better house. The house was built in 1945. And me and Rodit, we are senior citizens, unfortunately. And we want to have a nicer house for the future and probably end of our life. And we can accommodate our grandchildren. And Rodit's mother, she's 92 years old. She's wheelchair sick, and we want to bring her here to have a nice, much nicer environment than Queens. They are living in Queens now, unfortunately. Yes, we write down all the explanation in an addendum. Yeah, together. Excuse me?
On the mic, Peter, you're not, did you hit the mute?
The former owners were the Morans,
I don't know.
I believe? Okay.
The former was basically a developer or flipper or whatever. It was a company,
Right.
a real estate company.
But it's right on Round Lake, and it's on Round Lake, right? And it's behind it, there's a pool behind it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
You guys are invited to visit the property.
Yeah.
We signed a
I've been running and driving
affidavit.
past this house for
no, I'm familiar with
Long
the
time.
wondering what was going on.
former
with it.
owners are people that I know, so I
okay,
know what
good.
the house pretty well.
Okay, so now that we have that cleared up, it's an existing house with non-conforming setbacks. You're looking to add to the side and the rear of the house, which would make your non-conforming setbacks no worse, It's a large lot. It's almost 3 acres in size. It's 2.9 acres. It's adjacent to Round Lake, and it's on Orange County Highway number 5, also known as Lakes Road. The one question I have, and it really goes back to the building department, is it's saying that the required front yard is 40 feet. I believe on county roads, the required front yard is 50 feet. So I just want to have that correct before we move forward with the application. I think in terms of what you've submitted here, you've submitted everything that is required of you.
I think the building department put in behind the denial a letter of is telling us what is distance is.
That is correct, but in the case when a lot is fronting on a county highway, usually the setback is required is 50 feet. So I just want to double check that before we move forward with this application, assuming it's only 40.
I don't have an answer on that. We are not professionals on that. I don't know.
We'll work with the building department to find that
very
out.
good, yeah.
We'll clarify that before we get further down the line.
The only thing to add is that regardless, the house is.
Right, the house is where it is. It's been there a very long time. And the only thing that's changing is to the rear and to the side that's further away from the roadway.
Right.
But I just want to make sure that if we're granting a variance, that we're recording the correct required front yard.
That way you don't have to come back
Yeah.
later down the road
Yeah.
because of a clerical error,
Excuse me?
because of an error in somebody else's part, not your fault, so
No.
you don't want that.
Unfortunately, we cannot move the house.
Yeah, no, I know that. Do we want to, do you want that information before we set a public hearing, Mike?
No,
Okay.
I think that, like I said, the applicant has done everything he needs to do. He's provided us with a good map. He's provided us with the explanation as to why they want to do the work. They're showing the encroachments and the enlargements to the house. So we have all of that information. This is internal to the town where we need to figure out correctly whether or not it's a 40-foot minimum front yard or is it a 50-foot minimum front yard because of the county road condition. Also, being this is a variance along a county-owned road, do we have to do the GML review with Orange County?
Yes.
Yes.
So in that regard, what we should do, before you could set the public hearing, but before you send the notices out and finalize the notices, we should make sure that Ben is consulted on this 40-foot versus 50-foot issue. And if it's 50-foot, make sure that the notice states that, and then that will be in the package that we send out to county planning.
Correct.
Now, David, what do we need in timing-wise before, with coordination with the county before we can set that public hearing?
So the county, you can't act on an application until 30 days has elapsed since it's been sent out to county for their review. So you can open the public hearing, you can't close it and decide it if less than 30 days have gone by. So it would be okay to open the public hearing or set it for a public hearing next time. If you wanted to move it along, so long as you get this answer from Ben on the 40 to 50 foot in the next week, you can get that. Noreen can send out the package to county planning and set it for the hearing next month. Probably 30 days will not have passed, so the next month you probably have to keep it open to make sure that, unless in the interim you do get the county review letter,
Right, if they turn
which
around more
is
quickly.
possible because they do a pretty good job turning those around. So if you do get it, then you don't have to wait 30 days. You could just deal with it during the public hearing.
Public hearing then.
I think it will be.
Next time around.
Schedule it for.
Schedule it, yeah.
Yeah, I think you could schedule it for next
Schedule
time.
for next
If
time.
something goes awry, Noreen will know it. If we can't get the answer to that for some unforeseen reason, I can't imagine that happening, though. I think Ben should be able to get to the bottom of this in a hurry, and we could just notice it and go forward.
Okay. So with all of that in mind, would we like to schedule this for a public hearing next month? Yeah, motion.
I'd like to make a motion to schedule this for a public meeting next month, June 22nd, 2021.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Somebody just explain.
Okay, so what we've just done is schedule this matter for a public hearing next month, June 22nd. And in the meantime, in this coming week, we're going to get to the bottom of this 40-foot versus 50-foot required front yard. There's no more papers that you need to submit to the town at this point. If we get that worked out within the next week, Noreen will work with you on developing a mailing list for the public notices and provide you with that public notice write-up for you to mail out all the notices.
Okay.
And then, once that's all mailed out, we'll be scheduled for the public hearing next month.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, again, not professional. What is going to be the difference between 40 and 50 feet answer?
It's not going to have a physical difference on this. What it'll be is that, you know, if 50 foot is what's truly required, that's what should be reflected in the variance. If 40 foot is required, that's what gets reflected in the variance. It's a special condition because it's on a county road.
But is a difference on the condition between 40 and 50? It means,
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, the house is where it is. Nobody's going to make you change it. You know, I'm not going to say move it back 10 feet and we're all good. I just want to be sure that when we structure the language of the variance, that it is correct.
okay.
Want to make sure everything in the paperwork is correct, so you don't have to come back later on
No,
because of a mistake
this
that
is-
was
this is my
made that's
intention.
we could fix now.
Okay.
You understand about what a public meeting is? Like that there's a notification to neighbors of yours that if they
Yes,
choose to want to come
Noreen
to...
explained me, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike, where does the 50-foot come from? Is it,
It's a county road requirement, I believe. That, you know, whatever the zoning district is, you have your front yard minimums. If the lots happen to front on a county road, then the absolute minimum is 50. That's just my memory. We have to look that up and make sure that that's true. It's more of a county road requirement because they don't want encroachments built too close to the roadway in case there are future widenings or something, you know. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll be in touch with you. Noreen will be in touch with you to let you know where we stand on this and in terms of getting out the public notice to your neighbors. So we'll give you the mailing list and the notice, and then we'll see you next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay. Us to the final matter on the agenda tonight. This is a Kingsville Synagogue, third floor apartment. Do I have that right?
Hello, everyone.
Parking in the front yard, third floor additions, you're back.
So this project is back before you. It was once here about a year ago or so, and this board helped work through that conditions of parking and in the front yard for the use of the basement as an assembly or synagogue. Now we're here before you for the conversion of an attic into 5 bedrooms, or about 1,400 square feet of finished or habitable area. The reason why this project's before you is because of the slope of the land and along the sides of the house and the back of the house. It makes the conversion of the attic a 3rd story by definition. And as a result, a 3rd story would need a variance from the zoning board since only 2.5 stories are allowed per your zoning code. So there's no change in footprint proposed, there's no change in the appearance of the house. Actually, this is the front of the house. It's been like that for whatever number of years. It will not change. The attic exists. It is the conversion of that attic into the habitable space that we show in the architectural plans. So when submitting the plans, the building department reviewed it and referred it to you. I believe you have that letter. And he reiterates the point that we just discussed, that given the definition of a half-story and applying it to this project, this conversion would make it a 3-story house.
Was it built as a habitable attic, or was it built as a storage space?
Oh, I'm sure originally it was built as a regular attic.
It was built as limited storage, and then they went and fitted out for basically additional bedrooms. So they've created habitable area in just an occupiable space.
Correct.
So it's currently habitable.
It's currently habitable. Yes, it is, the work has been done.
The work has been done.
Yes.
Okay, so they've built 4 bathrooms, 3 bathrooms, 4 bedrooms, a kitchenette, and basically what they've built is an entire apartment up there. This is like a conversion to a 2-family house also. 5 bedrooms? 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a kitchenette,
Yes.
and a great room. So it's truly, it's a whole new dwelling unit upstairs.
It could be termed that way. It's not used as a 2-family. It's used for his immediate family. There's no question about that. It is not being rented for any income-producing property. It's not being used as an accessory apartment. It's not being used as a 2-family.
Is it on sewer or septic?
Septic.
Is the house designed for all these bedrooms?
No, that's going to be the next few hurdles. I mean, if this board continues, we have several hurdles after this that we need to go.
Sign this, Dave?
Huh?
Sign this?
No, I reflected the as-built that were done.
They not get building permits prior to doing the work?
They did not.
And, you know, this is 5 bedrooms. It's on a single lot. It already has how many bedrooms in the house now? It's got a septic system that's out there now. You got to design a whole new septic system.
Oh, yes.
If I remember correctly, septic was an issue.
On the last
time
one,
around.
yes, yes. I mean,
Yes.
this is another step further from the last variance we issued on this property just a year ago. And all of this was done without benefit of a permit. Meanwhile, this applicant is fully aware of the rules and regulations in the town of Monroe to do such work. He did all of this construction without benefit of a permit and comes here and looks for this board's blessing on allowing him to keep moving forward on this stuff. This is like rewarding bad behavior. This is unbelievable.
Does your client not know that he's supposed to get a building permit before he constructs a 3rd floor?
I
What?
couldn't guess on what he was thinking at the time. I know just when I had started with the project,
Yeah.
and then it went to court, and there's so many things involved with this process that as everything evolved, I started documenting the conditions and going forward, trying to get everything codified.
You were involved with the other application we had, the previous with the parking in the front yard and everything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then, who did he didn't use you to design this 3rd floor?
I don't think he used anybody.
He just had somebody come in and build all this out with no permits?
Correct.
Yeah, well,
Is the 3rd floor even designed for this type of live loading, now that you've changed the use? It used to be an attic. Now you've got furniture, you've got people, does the structure even support it? Has anybody done a structural analysis on that 3rd floor to whether or not it's suitable to support this additional weight?
To answer that question specifically, I could say I did, and it does support the floor loading for a habitable space.
It says something about egress windows. On a 3rd floor, are we looking at fire escapes?
I don't know.
I don't know. I would be
Building
intrigued to
department.
see what's underneath of it as the existing for the first and second level.
Yeah, on the second floor there's a master bedroom suite and I think 2 or 3 other bedrooms. And then on the first floor is your kitchen, living room, dining room, study arrangement.
What's the square footage below? Do you know?
I don't know offhand. I would, it's probably close to 3,000 square feet, as a guess.
Do we know when this work was already completed?
I don't know, but my plans reflect the first evolution of this is March 20th, 2019, if you look in the revision box.
I'm looking at this site plan now that's up there, and they haven't completed the work that was defined in the previous site plan.
Okay, that was, I'll tell you, that was my choice. I did not know which one to demonstrate to the board. So to answer your question directly, the work has not been done yet. They have not started it. I know they're in that process. So since it has not been completed, I chose to go with the original survey that we used as a basis for this submission.
Now
I didn't use the amended or recently approved site plan.
This now adds to the previous parking lot count also, right? And the parking lot count was a big issue on the previous application. So now we have a whole new dwelling structure up there, so we have 2 more required parking spaces.
I'm not sure about that in the code. I'm not sure if the residential
And
aspect of
Harris
it.
here, not calling this an apartment, a separate apartment. It's got
I see what you're getting
5 bedrooms.
Saying that it may not
bedrooms.
qualify for the definition of a dwelling unit. It may be too many occupants. Have to look at that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. If this project goes ahead, the septic will have to be revised. There are other concerns, code concerns regarding a 3rd story that I have to address regarding the building code's view of it. There are many other aspects that we need to go ahead with.
It says here in the definition of single-family dwelling that it's designed for and used by one family. The existence and design or otherwise of more than one room in a dwelling designed to use for cooking and food prep and designed to contain or containing cooking facilities and food storage and prep facilities, commonly known as a kitchen, shall be prima facie evidence that the dwelling is not designed for or used by one family. How many kitchens are in the house?
Well, I know there's one formal kitchen and then there's one Passover kitchen.
It says that not apply to a kitchen designed for use solely in observance of religious. There is a kitchen that's used specifically for holy days, and there's a kitchen that's not. Is there a 3rd kitchen?
The only one I'm aware of is, if it's a 3rd, is this kitchenette that we show on this 3rd floor.
It says it's a kitchenette, but then over here in the electrical notes, it says there's a dedicated receptacle for an oven.
Well, the electrical notes are just boilerplate notes. Just for any type of renovation.
Last time this application was, I think at this point, entire buildings. It's down to counting number of bathrooms, residents in that, parking spaces. This board went along a year ago to allow him to have his synagogue in the basement of the house, and now they come back with this kind of a condition that it's all built out, and we're just not supposed to question that. I'm sorry, but it raises a lot of questions.
Oh, we're supposed to question.
Yeah. Where do we begin? Additional information.
I don't know, we can go nuts. The code defines the word family. I don't know these people. I have no idea who lives in this house.
Because an oven isn't present, but if there's a a 220 outlet for an oven. Does that,
It already shows an existing kitchenette upstairs.
kitchenette's one thing, but
Kitchen?
it doesn't have it shouldn't have an
Yeah.
oven, but it stated it on the side notes that there's a receptacle for an oven.
Again, that's a boilerplate, so it may not be site-specific. We just added those notes, again, almost 2 years ago.
The Monroe code doesn't differentiate between a kitchen and a kitchenette, but I believe that the building code does, residential code.
And just to clarify, this work is already completed.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, last year there was an application to utilize the basement of the house as a synagogue, and along with that went requirements for parking around the perimeter of the lot. Some grading, some retaining walls were required, some cleanup of the front area of the lot, enclosure of the trash bins. So we don't know if any of that work has been done. David reports not. It's in progress.
At that time, was this work already completed?
Apparently, yes.
Apparently, yes.
So you're given variances on little pieces of information without seeing the big picture.
Right.
Correct.
Keep on coming at it like that, where the variances that you're given are not with the full picture in mind.
Correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Unbeknownst to us.
By showing, I think the survey that you said was an old survey or an old plan that you had here,
Well,
not showing the
Well-
correct conditions or
Well-
up-to-date conditions?
Well,
We're-
actually, I have to correct you on that. That is up to date.
Yeah, but
Okay, so
you made a
the-
comment saying that's on you. You used this plan for
Correct.
this meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
But they never built they never built what we gave a variance for. That's all it is. So technically, this is what's as built.
Technically, this is
Yeah.
the most accurate information.
Yeah, and they're not
to date.
obligated to build. They're not obligated to build what we gave a variance for. They don't have to. They came here, they spent money, they got a variance. They don't have to build it if they don't want to, right?
Well,
But
no,
there are
have to.
implications if they don't, right?
What do they get,
no, they
David?
have
1
to
year
build-
to
they have to
exercise that
build-
They're
variance?
operating a synagogue,
I
right?
forget
So
the
they need the
exact
parking.
time frame. I think it's 1 year.
They just would have to cease operating the facility as a synagogue if they choose not to. But they're continuing to, my understanding is that right now, they're operating this as a synagogue without the parking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't.
So
been
they're,
there, so-
potentially they may be using the structure in violation because they haven't done the work that we gave them a variance for. And then on top of that, we're being asked to consider the third floor.
Should have, I appreciate you representing them. They probably should have themselves or some other legal representation as well. It would seem that we need a lot more information
Well,
as to what's been going on with this.
Well, that's why I'm here, to get from the board what if further information they want. Obviously, this is a first step. There are many factors involved. There's many other entities involved with this process. So I know legally they're working through all of that. And on my end, I was asked to work through this part of the process. So I'm here before you presenting the information as direct as I can, and whatever further information you need, just please let me know.
Yeah, I think for starters, we need to see the full set of building plans for every floor of the house so that we know what's going on inside of this house, and every square inch of it is accounted for, so we don't end up back here again next year looking at what they did in the second floor.
Do we want to limit it to just what's inside the house, or do we also want to include the parking?
Yeah, we want to see as part of the application, at least the site plan that was approved by the planning board.
Okay.
And you can report back to us on what the level of completeness is in that construction. Because, I don't know if we can open up another variance while the last one hasn't been closed out yet. It's still in progress. You probably can, but
As much information on a septic tank as possible. I mean, that could already
Well, that
be
just,
overloaded.
yeah, well, I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. I mean, the septic's going to have to be redesigned, and that will have to go through a technical process.
that should be done before they occupy that building, before they come here and ask for permission to do so.
Couple years now. That septic could already be failing.
Seems like there's a lot of building code violations involved here. It's not really what's our responsibility? Identification of our responsibility to make the building department aware that that's.
I think if you have observations to make, it's perfectly acceptable to bring those to the attention of the building department. In terms of the application before you, I think it's, as the board has been doing for the years that I've been advising you, is, making sure that if there are other violations that are going to require variances for the applicant to obtain relief, and it's just wise for everybody's purposes to get them all out in the open up front and deal with them head on.
I mean, just the septic system. The septic systems are designed based on number of bedrooms in the house. This is a 5-bedroom extension to what's already in the house, and there's 2 stories beneath this. How many more bedrooms are in there? And what they have on the plans now, it looks like your typical 500 linear foot septic system design. And from the information that David reported back in October of 2018, they had very good percolation rates out there at that time. It's 3-minute and 5-minute percolation rates, which is very good. However, there needs to be a full description of what's being constructed here. Septic systems, existing floor plans, the bottom floor plan, was any of that built out in the synagogue? What's the condition of the construction of the parking lot that was required under the previous site plan? I mean, all of that should be shown here. If you want to show an existing conditions plan and then a proposed conditions plan, that's the way to approach it.
Also, a safety aspect.
The egress is just.
Egress or fire suppression on the 3rd floor. I don't know what the code is, but there should be some egress, there should be some way out there, safety-wise.
I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure in the town of Monroe, on the 3rd floor, it is both fire escape and sprinkler.
Fire escape and sprinkler, yeah.
That's just from my memory.
You got the sprinkler,
They
got the egress windows.
There's no question
Fire
about
escape,
that.
though.
Yeah.
There's no debate about the egress and the fire suppression or fire-rated construction. I mean, there's going to be several ways that this will have to be addressed.
I guess the way to proceed here right now, just to, see if we can bring it to a conclusion, is the things that you want the applicant to address before coming back. Obviously, you're not prepared to accept the application and put it on for a public hearing. So to be clear to the applicant, the things that you're looking for are specifically what? So David can bring them back to his client and hopefully provide them in order to move it.
Okay, a complete accounting of all the interior floor plans, from the basement right up to the attic, including garages and anything else that may exist out there.
Yeah, with the rooms matching the C of O.
A design on the additional septic system, or because we don't even know whether this septic system meets the number of bedrooms that's presently in the building. So that has to be fleshed out. He should provide us with a site plan of existing conditions and proposed conditions, so that we know what the final outcome here is. What does this thing look like in the end? Also, if you're putting in a new septic system, all the properties in the area are on septics and wells, so you need to know where all the existing wells are on surrounding properties, both uphill and downhill. Because, this lot was designed as part of a subdivision, and all of that was taken into consideration many years ago when this lot was formed, but now we're adding more septic systems that weren't part of that original plan. We don't know what the separation distances are. By the looks of it, I have a problem with wells and septic, but it's got to be verified.
Of course.
Take this back. I'm looking at Ben's letter. So he's interpreting this by saying that if the attic was brought up to meet the requirements for habitable space, then it was a story. But I think he's still saying that you can't have a third story by zoning. So it doesn't really matter if the third story was brought up to code.
No,
Yeah, it
but-
doesn't really matter. You can't have a third story. That's it.
Well, correct. See, that's
Yeah.
the variance before you.
That's
We-
the
we-
variance,
We have a
yeah.
2.5-story house.
Has nothing to do with making it code compliant. That's the responsibility of Ben. Our job is to decide whether or not you could have a third story in the house. Doesn't matter if it's compliant, not compliant, whatever.
Right.
It's actually a very simple interpretation.
It's a variance for asking for half a story.
Yeah. So what are we to make that determination based on? Even if it was legal and compliant, it still doesn't meet zoning. So I guess that's for us to determine as a group here. It doesn't matter what he shows us. He could show us the best septic system design in the world. He could show us everything is perfect, meets, residential code. In the end, it doesn't matter what he brings because it still doesn't meet the zoning code.
Right, it's going to be up to us to decide,
Yeah.
interpret third floor allowed or not allowed.
It's not even, I don't think it's an interpretation, it's a variance.
Right.
Ben has made the determination that what's out there is a third story and that it's prohibited, and the applicant's here applying for a variance to allow the third story instead of 2.5 stories.
And it's not minimal in size. I mean, it's almost 1,500 square feet.
Makes it
There
a
are many
9-bedroom
houses
house.
in this town that are not that large.
Yeah.
So based on that, do we want the applicant to come back with that information? Or,
Well, I would like to see a complete accounting of what's in that house. If we're being asked to approve something that's on the attic, we were first asked to approve something in the basement. We don't know what's going on.
right,
We know that they're adding 5 bedrooms. How many number of bedrooms are on floors 1 and 2?
right.
You know?
But back to Austin's point.
Back to Austin's point.
The question is,
I'm curious,
Would
but I'm
we-
not that curious. You know
do
what
we
I mean?
even go forward, assuming that we are ruling on whether we can give a variance to have a third floor? And if we determine that that's not the case, that's what we should be moving forward debating, right?
They're not adding 5 bedrooms, they've added 5 bedrooms.
Well, no,
I don't know.
No, this-
No, we know that.
Yeah. Well, we've had people come in and do things before, and after the fact, and we've had them remove things because it's not allowed. I mean, I'm not saying that's what we're going to be doing here, but I think we should be simplifying it to look at what it is that we're supposed to be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm clearly curious about the house because I'm just a curious person, but how curious am I really? Do I really need to see all that to know that this is a violation? Whatever direction, whatever is shown, it's still going to be a violation. So I don't know. I mean, I certainly I'm respectful of everyone on the board, and I wouldn't want to tell anyone what they should look at or not. I just know for myself, I may not need to see all that. And I think I've already seen enough, and I would be able to actually make my decision at this time. I don't need to see anything else.
In terms of going forward, what is the procedure for, do we have to?
Well, the procedure is, if there's information that you want the applicant to come forward with to, in your view, make the application complete, you let them know, which is what we were just talking about. And you can either set the public hearing now for next month to start hearing it and have the applicant working on that, or you could say, look, I want to see this stuff first, and the next meeting we'll make sure if everything that we've asked for appears to be here, then next month schedule the public hearing for the following month, and then have the public hearing on the issues at hand.
I think that there's a long list here of things we'd like to see. I would be inclined not to schedule it subject to. We've had too many conditions where we've scheduled meetings subject to based on long lists of items that are required that have burned us in the past. So I tend not to go that direction anymore. If it's, one small administrative thing, that's one thing. But this is a whole mystery, this bill. And I, for one, before I can, even think about what's going on the third floor, I want to know what's going on in the entire building, basement to the top floor. I mean, you already have the basement floor plans done. You have the top floor plan. You just fill out what's going on in between. And explain how you're going to meet the parking requirements for the additional 2 spaces and not be in violation of the previous variance that we gave on the parking lot size and location. That's why that's important to me.
Well, I think that's consistent with the zoning code rather than technical, issues like septic design and things like that. I mean, here, getting the envelope of the building in place and researching the need for additional parking is definitely warranted. Because I don't have the answer to that. I know we keep talking about 2 spaces. I'm not sure. So,
Like if the occupancy is changed, does that invalidate our variance approval?
That variance.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that
That might need to be added to the application.
Yeah.
That might need to be added to the application.
I think what you have to be guided by always is what has Ben, Ben interprets the code and he enforces the code. That's his job. And then the applicant can take an appeal from Ben's determinations and either challenge his interpretation of it and ask you to do, review it and interpret it in a way different. If they're aggrieved by the way Ben has interpreted it and they think he's wrong, they could ask you to overturn that. Or they can come before you and say, look, we want a variance. We understand that we're in violation of X, Y, and Z per Ben's letter, and we want variances from those items. If further violations appear down the road, that's up to Ben from a code enforcement issue to issue a violation or to not issue the building permit or not issue the CO for certain enumerated reasons. And if the variances from those are requested, they can, it can happen in sequence. What we try to avoid from an administration standpoint for the town and for the applicant is successive application after application. So I think what you're getting at right now is something that's not necessarily required, but it's good practice, which is if there's further items that are going to be required for the applicant to use the property the way they're seeking to use it, let's not deal with them one after another, after another, after another over the course of several years. Let's see if we can get them out on the table, talk to the applicant about it, talk about them out loud, and then address them head on, as we discussed earlier.
We were asked to give a variance last time around on something, and not all the information was knowingly not given to us.
That's where I'm going. I'm wondering if we should rescind the variance.
It certainly would call it into question. I don't know, as I'm sitting here right now, I couldn't tell you, is there case law that talks about, can it be voided? Is it voided, and under what authority? Does Ben void it? Is it, how does that get done?
Well, the variance was
Or-
granted under false pretenses,
Right.
right? We didn't know everything that was going on in that building.
Yeah.
They had developed the third floor and were living in it for 2 years now? I mean, this
I guess what
is-
I'm saying is, you're certainly right, conceptually, it's just not something that we see very often in municipal practice. People generally, thank God, don't do that.
Right.
And so it's not an issue that comes up that I could give you the answer right now to say, yes, this is the procedure. I'd have to take a look and see what the case law says about that.
So, David, if you'd like to, explore the record further and, see what additional documentation you can bring to us next time, doesn't have to be next month, as soon as you get it together, or if your client chooses to go forward with this application?
I can't make that decision.
I know,
Obviously,
I
I have to talk to him about it
Absolutely.
and see which process or which steps we want to take, or he wants to take. And I would imagine if he wants to continue, I will be here next month, I'm sure. All right. Have
Thank
a
you,
good
David.
evening.
Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Okay, that was our last applicant for this evening.
Yeah.
I got nervous when I saw this one.
So, does anybody else have any items they'd like to discuss before we adjourn for the evening? Have we had enough fun for one night?
Where's our minutes? I'm not sure. It's a public meeting.
So, David, you've got for us a couple of resolutions to prepare?
Gatsa and Feeney.
Yeah, that Feeney one was, that's been a two-family.
What's that? Oh, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was originally a two-family, but I've lived at it for a long time.
I know the Gerchikis family, and they have been up there since the beginning of time in Monroe. And, if Bob Gerchikis was willing to write a letter and state that, when his grandfather owned it, back in the 1960s, it was still a two-family house before Mr. Feeney purchased it, I'm willing to take his word on that.
This gentleman want to have anything to add? No?
This is an associate from my office.
Yeah,
And he was going to, yes.
It took me a while to catch on. I'm
You're
like,
all
do we
wondering,
have
like, who's this guy taking
another
notes? What
one?
is he, a reporter?
Another
Bob's
one? I was
it.
looking at the
Meet
agenda.
all the members of the Monroe zoning board.
Yeah, I thought he
yeah.
might have been the attorney with David.
Actually, Mr. McCarthy's attorney.
Follow him all around, make sure he doesn't get in trouble.
It's, it's always good to have somebody on retainer, as they say.
Okay, with that, I think that wraps up our business for tonight. Would anybody like to make a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, before everybody's done, George?
Good night, George.